This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, here with you for another episode of the Steelers Preview. That's right, we're finally back to previewing football games and not just randomly rambling on about anything that we want to talk about. Nonetheless, the triumphant trio is back. Myself, Dave Schofield. Dave, how are you doing this evening?
I'm ready for some football. It's been way too long.
It's going to feel like a lot longer based on the fact that we have to wait until Monday night until this team plays again. Brian Anthony Davis, how are you doing?
Yeah, I live in a zoo, and you could probably see stuff flashing across the screen. But I am feeling great because Dave's right. It's football's back because that bye week, I feel like just a homeless person wandering looking for truth, and there's nothing to do.
Is
And
that
now,
is that a Juju jersey? The yellow?
yeah, check this out.
Very nice.
A little double J, double S.
There you go. Fell off the truck from China. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, well, the boat probably. I mean, I'd love to see that truck work, but there you go.
All right, so folks, here we go. We have a lot of stuff going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have been keeping you abreast of all that information this past week, whether it was with the Steelers Hangover, the Steelers Stat Geek. The standard is the standard, and we will try to catch you up on everything that is Steelers news. But before, we've been doing this for about 2 weeks now. We go around the horn where we talk about anything that we feel like talking about in the week that was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dave, we're going to start with you tonight. What's your around the horn segment?
Wow, I don't know. You said the word breast, and I just haven't been able to focus on anything else you said.
Abreast.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was just waiting for Brian's reaction, is what it was.
And I'm the pervert of the group.
Yes.
Seriously.
Okay. I want to talk about something that some various Steelers beat writers have brought up that's more NFL related, and that is I want to give credit to my own genius. That was one of my first ever articles that I wrote for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, which was last September, was outlining, and we've mentioned it on here before, a 17-game schedule for the NFL. Well, it seems like this is actually picking up some traction within the NFL offices as something that they would like to consider of doing that, where they add one more game. And since this was something that, it's funny because I wrote about it last September on the site, but it's actually something that I'd come up with probably even 6 months before that. And I'm just saying I'm taking credit for this one, although they probably won't do it. But I think it is interesting just them talking about the whole notion of a 17-game schedule where teams would then each play one game at a neutral site. So I was wondering what you guys thought about everyone being forced to do a neutral site game.
Personally, I always say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the 16-game schedule. The system is about as flawless as you can get in terms of how they pick the divisions they go against and all that stuff. But they're going to be greedy, and that's something that Marquise Pouncey said this week. He said they're going to be greedy and they don't like it. Brian, what are your thoughts on the 17-game potential schedule?
Well, if they do a game like that, then it's going to be a novelty game. It's going to be Baltimore against the Redskins. It's going to be the Steelers against the Eagles. And you know what happens when the Steelers play the Eagles away from Pittsburgh? They lose. Since 1965, they lose. So I'm not looking for it. You know what? You know why I want them to keep it the same? Because I know who the Steelers are going to be playing in 2042 based on this system. The 16 games and 4 divisions in each conference. I can tell you who they're playing.
Except
for 2 games.
Except for 2. We know I'm all with 2. And it's great. It's a wonderful system.
I could tell them. I did this with a group today at work. I was explaining to them because they're Detroit Lion fans now in Maryland, because a local guy in Frostburg and in Cumberland area is now the starting running back for the Lions. He's a rookie. Right. And so they're all excited about it. They're going to see the Redskins. I'm like, well, they come to Pittsburgh in 2 years. Like, how do you know that? I'm like, because I know the schedule. They're like, how do you know that? I know the formula. So that's the deal. But the other 2 games, but we know that Pittsburgh's in second place. They're playing the second place teams of 2 other divisions, and we know who they are.
Yeah, I was going to say, to sum it up, I'm going to say I like it how it is now. I think they should keep the 16-game schedule. I would not mind an extra bye week, especially if they put it right before everyone plays on a Thursday, to where it's almost like two mini buys put together along with their regular bye. I could go for that. I would rather do that than mess with anything else. But if they're going to change it, I would hope that they would do something more like a 17 even than an 18. So I guess what I'm saying is don't change it, but if you do, that's the answer.
There's only one thing that I would look forward to if they do go to 17 games, and that is that if they were to keep the start of the season the same, it would bump everything back. And if they gave 2 bye weeks, it might bump it out even more. It would be basically that President's Day weekend.
Yes.
Which most people, I'm not going to say everyone, most people have that day off. And I've been wanting the day after the Super Bowl off for years now. And that would be fantastic. That would be awesome. So, Brian.
I'd take it.
Yeah, hell yeah, you would.
I already take
it. You already take it. I get what you're saying. Go ahead, Brian, with your Around the Horn segment.
I've got 2 proper nouns for you. Tuzar Skipper. Tuzar Skipper. Guys, what's our obsession with Tuzar Skipper? I liked him in training camp. But here's the thing. He was the 53rd man on the roster. And if he wasn't, he was the 52nd. But the bottom line, they moved him out to bring somebody else in. They didn't love him enough like we did. They didn't love him like we did. So everybody, as soon as he's got cut, everybody went crazy. It's Tuzar Skipper Day. Woo! He's coming back to save the season. No, he's not coming back to save the season. He's coming back to not dress on Sundays. He's just coming to fill a roster spot. That's it. People wanted Chicolo gone. You know why they wanted him gone? They didn't care about the facts. They wanted Tuzar Skipper back. They just love this guy. I loved him in the preseason. But I got to tell you, one of the reasons I loved him in the preseason, we've got how many articles to fill in June and July and in April and in May. And so we're talking about the 53rd guy on the roster every single time who they've got to keep. But in the end, we're not seeing those guys on Sundays. All this ballyhoo over Fred Johnson, and Fred Johnson's gone because something happens. They've got to get rid of him. If they love the guy, they find a way to keep him. If not, Tuzar Skipper's back on the practice squad in the New York Giants. That's not his choice. It was Pittsburgh's choice. They value Jaron Elliott a whole lot more, and I'm fine with that. Why am I yelling?
Frank Webb, is that what you said? Frank?
Yeah,
Frank Webb. Oh, by the way, it's Deontay Spencer. These guys have been razzing me all day because I did go a little crazy over Deontay Spencer, not Deontay Jackson or whatever you wanted to call
No,
him.
it was Spencer Jackson, I thought.
Spencer. Okay, now you're doing it. But no, I did do that. But that's a different thing because I thought he was a better opportunity at returning kicks than Ryan Switzer was. And I still stand by that.
You're right.
I would trade him for that. So that's a little different situation because he's a starter when it comes to special teams.
Yeah.
So there you go. So it's a little bit different.
Wow. I mean, I can't add anything to that. Dave, you?
I don't know what to say. I'm afraid Brian's going to yell at me. No. You're right. Honestly, if they would have put in a waiver claim for him and brought him back, I'd have been fine with it.
I would have been fine with it too.
The fact that they didn't do it, I'm fine with that too. They have tried to sign him off of the street when they didn't put in a waiver claim for him. Sure, maybe they even reached out to him about the practice squad, but he stayed with the Giants. Now, if the Steelers really wanted him on their 53-man roster, they can sign him off of their practice squad. But obviously, you know what this means? They don't. End of story.
All right. That was a good rant, Brian. I'll give you that. That was a good rant. Amen.
I haven't had one in a while.
So, okay. No, you haven't. So that's good. I'm going to go with my Around the Horn with saying that I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers have a ridiculously good opportunity this week and Monday Night Football to get right. And I'm mainly talking about the offense. I wrote an article today about how, believe it or not, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is ranked 5th right now in the red zone. That surprised me when I saw that. They're a pretty good red zone defense. What also surprised me, well, not really, was that the Miami Dolphins have the worst red zone defense in the National Football League. They're almost surrendering touchdowns or trips to the red zone 70% of the time. I was stunned, and I thought, holy cow, this is going to be a phenomenal opportunity for the Steelers and Mason Rudolph mainly to get right, to give them some confidence, to really get out there and push the ball down the field. It's what we all want to see. And I'm not saying it needs to turn into Bruce Arians' chuck it deep every 5 plays offense. I'm talking about being very calculated with when you take those shots, be balanced, but still have the threat of going down the field. This could be the perfect opportunity for them. I hope they seize that opportunity because this offense has to pick it up. We talked about it last night on the Standards of Standard. They average just over 20 points per game right now, and it's going to have to get higher than that. Lance said 24. I was leaning more towards 25, getting to that watermark. Give the defense a little bit of a break from time to time. That's my thoughts on that. Dave, what are your thoughts on that as well?
Just as the overall, how those things kind of match up, right? Where the Steelers' strength also goes against Miami's weakness. I actually have an inverse one of that when we get to Stat Geek, where it's a great matchup. It really is if you think about it. But at the same time, I have an article that will run sometime in the next couple of days that things are so much in the Steelers' favor, it's almost kind of scary.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's that. I think you're right. This is a great chance for them to just open it up and go out there and say, "Hey, let's see what we got. Let's do it."
Brian, what are your thoughts?
I think you are 100% correct, but I'm mad at you. And the reason I'm mad at you, it's touchdown zone. And you know better. And if you're going to do it right. And you didn't, Jeff. So
I apologize.
Nah, but this is a great matchup. This is a good matchup for the Steelers. This is a get-right game. Even though they're on a one-game winning streak, but I really love the fact that this is one that could get them back started again. And I know I've used this stat like crazy. I've used the 1991 stat when the last time they've lost on Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh against the New York Giants. I remember that. I remember watching that game. And I've also used the 3-4 stat from the 1995 season. That's another thing that I'm looking at too. But this is the perfect game to go in, and if you do it and do it right, a lot like they did on Monday Night Football against the Cincinnati Bengals, go in and have a decisive win, have a signature win. That's what they need. If they get a signature win, then they're off and running, and there's a lot to get excited for, even though it's an 0-6 team. But here's the thing. If something happens that they lose this game, it's all we need to know.
Yeah.
That's it. That's when we can stop. That's when we can stop going, whoa, if they do this and this and this. No, that's when we stop.
Well, I'm going to ask each of you a separate question, and I want to see if we would have the similar response. Dave, if the Steelers win in decisive fashion, the fan base's reaction to the win will be what?
That they should have.
Exactly. It was the winless Dolphins. It doesn't even count. And on the flip side, Brian, if the Steelers barely beat the Dolphins, let's say it's a close game, maybe he takes a Chris Boswell field goal to win it, the fan reaction will be...
I told you these guys suck.
Jeff, then the last question goes to you.
What's that?
If the Steelers lose this game on Monday night, the reaction is going to be...
The world is ending.
Fire Tomlin.
Because
they say fire Tomlin if they win or lose.
Yeah,
because we just let the Dolphins get a better draft pick by losing to them.
Oh, that's another good caveat to that. Yes, I never thought about that. that would be in the comment section. Absolutely would be in the comment section.
Let's just say this. I'm going to be at the game. I'm kind of glad that I probably am not going to be tuning into the post-game show, because if that's the case, I don't want to see the comments in the post-game show.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
You know what? Of course, we're rooting for them to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But if they don't make the playoffs, every week I'm just rooting for that draft pick to go down a little bit of a peg, get to that 15-18 range, just so I don't have to hear it.
Yeah, I don't personally care about it, but I know what you mean. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand it. It's kind of like a crutch for some people that want to complain about everything just to complain. And so if we get rid of the crutch, there you go. So, all right, guys, good around the horn segment. Dave, why don't you head us into the Stat Geek segment?
Oh, all right. So this is going to touch a little bit on some of the same stuff that was on the Stat Geek show, but a little bit deeper. So Jeff, you'll have to hear some of it again. Brian, this will be brand new to you. Sorry.
Which, by the way, Brian, I called you out on the standard as a standard last night too, and I know you didn't hear it because you don't listen to our podcast. But just want to let you know you're getting some quality airtime outside of this show.
It doesn't matter whether you're talking good about me or bad about me, as long as you're talking about me.
All right. So to bring it back, although the Steelers are 8-4 on the game following the bye under Mike Tomlin, which is slightly better than his overall winning percentage in the regular season. So he does better in that week than he has just in general. One concern is that the Steelers start very slow in games coming out of the bye. Now, I know some of this is because in years past, it's Ben Roethlisberger and he's been given the entire week off and all that stuff. So it could be a much different situation this year. But the Steelers have only scored under Mike Tomlin a total of 23 points in the first quarter in weeks following a bye. And they have not scored, and I said this on the Stat Geek, they have not scored a touchdown in the first quarter in a week following the bye since 2008. And that was against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I want to know if either of you guys have any guess as to who scored that touchdown.
2008?
Against the Cincinnati Bengals in the first quarter.
Can you?
It was a Ben Roethlisberger pass.
Okay.
A 2-yard Ben Roethlisberger pass to
Heath Miller seems like an obvious answer, but I don't think it's him. I think it's someone else. Am I right? It's someone else.
You're right, but Heath Miller was going to be the next one, which was the year before they scored a touchdown, and that one was to Heath Miller in 2007 in a first quarter after that. So, Brian?
I am going to go with Mewody Moore.
Oh, my goodness, he got it.
I was actually going to say him.
Mewody Moore. Yeah. That was a great, that's how long it's been since the Steelers have scored a first quarter touchdown coming out of the bye. Just because their offense just takes a little bit to get going. And the Steelers have not done a good job this year scoring. And their first quarter scoring is not good, but what's the worst is their first drive of the game. They have not done well. But on the flip side, kind of like what Jeff was talking about with strengths covering weaknesses, the Dolphins they've given up the most points in the first quarter of any team in the NFL. And that's including teams that have played 7 games versus the Dolphins only playing 6. So, and it's not even close. They've given up 54 points. That's 9 points a game they average giving up in the first quarter. And they've given up points to every team that they faced except for the Washington Redskins in the first quarter. So that was one thing. The other thing I was going to bring up is the whole notion of the Steelers being favored by currently right now 2 touchdowns. And what is their record when they're favored by two touchdowns? I went back to the merger and I did it by coach.
Wow.
And Chuck Noll was the best at 4-0. And the worst would be you got a 50-50 shot.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'm going to go with a 10, Bill Cowher.
Bill Cowher is only 1-2 in games where the Steelers were favored by 14 or more points.
So 1-2 straight up or 1-2 covering the spread?
No, 1-2 straight up.
Oh.
In his career, the Steelers were only ever favored by 14 points. This is regular season. I don't know that they'd be favored by that much in the playoffs. 3 times, and they lost 2 of them. Now, when it comes to Mike Tomlin, they have been favored 9 times. 9 times. They have been favored where they've been favored by 2 touchdowns or more, and his record would be 8-1, with that lone loss being.
Was that a loss to Tampa Bay at home?
No, they were not favored by 2 touchdowns in that one. They were favored by a lot, but it wasn't 2 touchdowns.
I figured it was like.
Got to make sure that.
I'm going to say This is just a guess, and the others were guesses. I'm going to say 2009 in a hurricane in Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football, 3-0 win against the Miami Dolphins, who were winless.
Well, that was a win. You're
07.
right.
That was
We're looking
07.
for the one time it was where the Steelers lost.
I really wasn't paying attention to you, Dave. I was looking at all the comments.
What about the Bruce Gradkowski Raiders coming into Heinz Field?
That would be the 2000. I got to make sure I say this right. 2009 Oakland Raiders coming in, and the Steelers lost 27-24 when they were favored by 2 touchdowns.
Hell game.
That's what I was going to say. That's what that game was.
Were they? That was it.
Yeah.
Of the Unleashed Hell. Yeah.
I got it right.
Yeah. Good job, Jeff.
Bruce Gradkowski comes into town, his hometown. Oh my gosh, that's good stuff.
2 touchdowns, underdogs, and then they won.
Can I just say something real quick? You know, I'm not trying to wax your car, but Dave, that kind of stuff is amazing. That you go ahead and find all this, because I won't even know where to look. In fact,
Pro Football Reference.
I'm going to say it's not hard to find. It's just you got to think about what you want to look for. That's honestly what it is.
I'm just giving you credit because I mean, my 2 guesses there that I got right, I guessed.
No, you remember so many plays. I thought he was going to break down the Mewelde Moore touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger. I thought he was going to say it was a play action pass, and he looked through the end zone, and Moore was out in the flat, and he just dumped it off to him, and he fought, and he had him. Someone missed. I have no idea if that's what happened. I just thought that's what I expected from Brian on that.
So we need to compliment. We need to compliment Jeff now because he's going to feel left out.
I'm trying to think of a way that we can somehow, sometimes I think about these obscure names of players that most people probably forget, like Najee Davenport,
the dump truck.
Well, he was known more as a Packer.
Dookie.
Yeah. The dump truck is the same.
But I sometimes I randomly throughout the day think of these really obscure Chucky Akobe, and all these guys are like, man, what are these guys? It's crazy, but.
I see your Chucky Akobe, and I raise you a Mark Stock.
Oh, wow.
And I see your Mark Stock, and I raise you a wonderful, terrific Mons Sr.
Okay, now, I need one more. Let's go back to 1984, my favorite year, and I see all those, and I'm just going to throw the chips in on Elton Veals.
That's a good one.
Gosh, that's before my time. Shoot, I was going to ask you something I totally forgot. Anyways, oh well. It probably wasn't worth mentioning anyways. So that's the Stat Geek. Is that it, Dave? You good for that?
Oh, yeah, that was plenty.
I thought that was good. Yeah. So here we go. Miami Dolphins, Pittsburgh Steelers. And as Dave said in his Stat Geek segment, this is a recipe for victory for the Steelers. Monday night at home. We know they haven't lost since the 90s at home on Monday Night Football. I don't think Tomlin's lost at home at Monday night in his tenure with the Steelers. Obviously,
I don't think he can.
They're wearing their color rush jerseys, which they've never lost in.
Yep.
It just seems like this is, like Brian said, a get right game. But still, there's certain players that I feel like all of us are looking at specifically to have a good performance. We'll call them our X factors. So someone that you're really thinking, man, I want to see this player, X, whatever position, whatever offense, defense, doesn't matter. Dave, we'll start with you. Who's your X factor for this Monday night game at Heinz Field?
Oh, this is an easy one. It's Mason Rudolph. This is his chance to come back after missing the game with a concussion and having the bye week to show that he's the guy that's going to lead the Steelers the rest of this season. And this is kind of I almost look at it as a make or break game for him. This is his game to come out and show what he can do. And I think that he will. And as long as he does, then the Steelers should cruise.
Brian, who's your X factor?
Guys, we've got so many X factors here. And I'm not making a joke. It's just there's so many people that really need to step up. But I'm going to go with Vance McDonald. I think this is with Mason Rudolph back. I think the Vanimal has an opportunity to something that he's a guy that Rudolph relies on. And it's something that it's a guy that I think I could actually see him having 2 touchdowns in this game.
I'm going to go on the other side of the football. And I think this might be a little bit of a vendetta game for this individual. And that would be none other than Minkah Fitzpatrick going against his former team. Don't think for a second that he isn't thinking about the fact that he said he wanted out. Like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be here for this awful rebuild that you're going through. And so he winds up in Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh's not that much better in terms of record this season, but at the same time, don't think he doesn't want to make plays against that team that he said he wanted to leave, that he wanted to walk away from. And so I expect him to have at least one turnover, whether it's a fumble recovery, an interception. I think he's going to be making some plays. I think he's my X factor in a big way this Monday night.
I have a quick question about that, Jeff.
Sure.
Do you think, since they don't really seem to be interested in winning games, that they might just completely avoid him altogether so he doesn't have a chance to make a play?
It's possible. It is possible, but I feel like Fitzpatrick is a quarterback that's going to take some risks. You know, he's going to get pressure. We know he's going to get pressure because
I was going to say if he has any time to throw the ball.
Exactly. They've given up 24 sacks already this season. He averaged 4 sacks a game. Pittsburgh's pass rush could just tee off on him. He's going to just chuck it up. Think back to Tampa Bay last year. You know, that's when Bud Dupree had a pick six in their own end. So he's going to take some risks. I think Fitzpatrick's going to be waiting on it. I think he's going to make a play. Brian, what do you want to say?
2 things. First of all, you were right about Fitzpatrick. He is going to be picking teeth out of his hobo beard after this game. I could definitely see that happening. But the other thing that I want to say is Dave brought up a really good point about them not wanting to win games. But what I'm thinking about is who doesn't play in this game for the Miami Dolphins. And the reason I'm going to go ahead and say that, the trade deadline's the next day. And they're looking at getting rid of some guys. Again, I mean, we've heard about Devontae Parker. They are still looking to make deals. And they're getting rid of everybody. So I'm wondering if they want to save some guys to not lose out on trades. I mean, that's just something that goes on in my head. But, I mean, we've seen it from this team. This is a tanking team. And they could go ahead and say that they're not. But really, I wouldn't be surprised if they started Jeff Hartman this weekend at quarterback.
Oh, that might be an upgrade.
And I would buy that jersey.
Yeah, I don't know what number I would get. It would be interesting to see what number I'd get. But anyways, let's talk about, and this is something that Lance wanted to talk about on the standard as a standard, yet his internet was not functioning at the beginning of the show. So I'll ask you guys the question. And that is, what area of the Steelers, whether it's offense or defense, doesn't matter, do you really want to see them improve upon this week and moving forward? So, Dave, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, since you took away my answer of special teams, I will go with. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It could be special teams.
Yeah, well, no, honestly, with the special teams, it would be the return, the return game getting a little bit more. But let's not go there. I'm going to say the run game being consistent and being able to. I don't need a running back to just to run the ball 5 times, and one of those times they bust out for a 25-yard run when they're getting only 1-yard gains the rest of the time. I'd rather see them getting 5 to 7 yards a pop. So I think this is a time to say, hey, let's come out, let's let these big bruisers own the line, let's get pushed down the field, let's get our hands on the ground so we can fire out and actually move the line of scrimmage and not just have the philosophy of we're just going to hold the line and open the hole. Let's move the whole line and then have the hole. So that way the line's already 3 yards downfield and then you're falling forward for 5 every time.
Now, Dave, you're an offensive line kind of guy. You used to coach that position when you did coach. How much of you think the lack of success in the running game is due to just a lack of attempts?
Oh, you mean not enough rushing attempts?
Yeah. They're just not trying to do it enough.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, now of course the numbers were a little bit skewed because of in the second half when Duck had the 21-yard run, but against the Ravens, the Steelers actually averaged more yards per rush than the Ravens did.
Don't tell Lance that.
Yeah, I know. Well, like I tried to say to Lance, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you can't count Duck's rush, but yet you're going to come out Lamar Jackson's rushes for the Ravens. You either have to count the quarterbacks for both, or you don't count the quarterbacks for both. So either way, the Steelers had more yards per rushing, whether you count the quarterbacks or you take them out of the equation, even though, yes, one's a running quarterback more than the other. But the whole reason that it looked like they got dominated on the ground is because 40 attempts to 19. Now, I'm not saying the Steelers need to run the ball 40 times, but I do think they need to get back to what they did in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Brian? Where are you pointing in the direction of the team that you want to see get better?
We have an all-points bulletin out on Dave Schofield. He is accused of stealing Bryan Davis's thunder, and because that was his answer.
That's because it's the right answer. Either one of us could have said it.
Yeah, because it's the right answer. But you know what? There are other answers because there's many things still to improve on this team, and I'm going to go with the deep passing game. We need to see more of that. I thought we were starting to see more of that from Mr. Mason Rudolph, and I think we can see some more of it. But if you get that deep passing game going, you get the secondary receivers going, Juju Smith-Schuster can be a WR1 on this team. He really can. But when he's not getting help, he's not going to be able to do that. So if you go ahead and give him some help, get that deep passing game going, that deep passing game will open up the running game as well. And you'll go ahead and have an opportunity to maybe have that run start setting up the pass after that pass sets up the run when they're not loading 8 men in the box. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. The run game was my number one, but the more that I think about it, I really like this answer now. And the reason I would like this answer is the fact that it could help open up the run more.
Both of you go offense. I'm going to go defense again and say that I want to see the tackling improve. For me, I was disappointed with the Chargers game. Mainly in the second half, there were just a lot of missed opportunities, whether it was Devin Bush, Terrell Edmonds, a lot of young players making some young mistakes. I hope that improves and continues to improve because let's be honest, when you start getting into the games that matter the most, a missed tackle and giving up a first down can be an absolute backbreaker. It's the difference between getting off the field and continuing to stay there. So I think that for me, if I'm going to look for anything on defense, because they do such a great job already with getting sacks and pressure and creating takeaways now, that I think tackling needs to improve. That's my one area that I feel like the Steelers can improve upon as they move forward throughout the last 10 games of the regular season. So, okay. Go ahead, Dave.
I want to give Devin Bush a pass for his second half tackling against the Chargers.
Yes.
Because I do believe he was not 100% because of his ankle injury. And even if you're 90%, it takes 100% in order to get a guy down in open field like that, especially for a rookie. So Jeff is exactly right. We want to see that improve to show that it was just based on the tweaked ankle and not going to be a problem moving forward.
Okay, and just a quick sidebar, you brought up Devin Bush. If you were picking, take your black and gold glasses off. As of right now, if you had to vote for either Nick Bosa or Devin Bush for Defensive Rookie of the Year, who are you picking? Brian, we'll go with you first.
Nick Bosa.
And just because of the sack numbers?
Yeah, you know what? Not just because of the sack numbers, I see him dominant. I see him as a dominant player right now, and I really think he is your Defensive Player of the Year. Did they break it? But I thought they broke it up into conferences, though.
I think they do. I'm just asking a general question.
Yeah.
Do they? For Rookie of the Year?
Yeah. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, I believe they do. But if they don't, I love what Bosa's doing, and I think my vote would go to him, and it's not because I don't want to be a homer in this exercise. It's just the fact that I really see how dominant he is playing, and he's one of those guys that's really elevated that defense in San Francisco.
Dave, what about you?
I'm going to also say Bosa right now, and I think that's because a lot of people that would vote for this anyway, the reason I think he would get it is because of the success that team is having right now. If that team all of a sudden starts to just skid and fall off the map, and the Steelers all of a sudden get on a massive win streak with, kind of led by their defense, because I think San Francisco's winning their games led by their defense, then you could see a shift. But the biggest reason, it's hard to say who's actually better, but I think the vote would definitely go for Bosa because of the success of his team.
I agree with both you guys. I think Bosa plays a sexier position when it comes to voting. The sack numbers are there. And even though Devin Bush is top 10 in the NFL in tackles and has 6 turnover takeaways in some way, shape, or form, I actually think that he's playing better. But like you said, I could see how the votes would go to Bosa because of his team's undefeated. He plays a different position, and Bush is not going to be as recognized as much. So I think Bush is playing better, but I agree with you guys there. So let's go ahead and
Still a lot of football to play.
Oh, a lot of football to play. So and Devin Bush has gotten better and better every week, every single week. Yep. So let's turn our attention to fantasy football now. And I know a lot of people sometimes moan and groan, oh, they're talking about fantasy. But when we talk about specific Steelers or this upcoming matchup, it does reference the impact they might have on the particular game. My struggles continue in our league. However, I'm succeeding in other avenues of daily fantasy football. Like I've made all my money back on the Sunday night game of Philly and Dallas last week with one $2 bet. So I am seeing success in small areas, just not where it counts the most, which is the big money league where we're in. So, okay, guys, if you're starting someone, you could pick a myriad of players in this one, but I'm curious to see who you want. Who's going to be your starter? Brian, we'll go with you first. Who's your got to play this guy this Monday night?
I still think it's Vance McDonald. I really think he's going to be used a lot. I think he's cheap. As far as tight ends go, I would probably go for him. Unfortunately, I can't because this is going to be a special game with only 5 players. But if it was my Sunday daily fantasy and he was there, I'm probably picking him over other tight ends in the league. In fact, out of everybody, I'm going Vance McDonald. I just think he's going to have a breakthrough game.
Dave, who's your go-to?
All right, well, let's kind of not do it like we do our league and say you're on a league that runs Sunday through Monday. I know ours cuts off on Sunday, the way we do ours, but some of them do it that way. I think to go along with Brian, a great tandem would be a nice cheap quarterback in Mason Rudolph and a good cheap tight end in Vance McDonald, and that could possibly pay really big dividends for the two of them.
I'm going to go with someone that Brian has bashed a lot this season, and rightfully so, and it's James Conner. Based on the fact that we all talk about how this is a perfect game for the offense to start moving the ball down the field, I would not be shocked at all, one iota, if they come out and say we're going to run it right down their throat over and over and over again. And you don't see Mason Rudolph throw it downfield that much. He might take some shots every now and then. I would not be shocked if that's the game plan, because if they take anything from the Chargers game, it's that if they can run the ball, get first downs, keep these drives moving, keep the defense fresh, that might be their recipe for success. So in that case, I think they're going to give the ball to a lot to James Conner. He's obviously been targeted a lot in the passing game. He hasn't dropped a pass yet, knocked on wood, and he's become a very good receiving threat as well. He's turning into a dual threat type player. Now, is he a Christian McCaffrey type? No, but at the same time, he's getting you points in multiple avenues. So therefore, I would say James Conner would be a good pickup this week. Brian, do you disagree?
No, I think he's a fantastic pickup this week, and I would probably use him. In fact, I am done bashing him because when I went and did that, I feel like I have a kinship with James Conner, but I'm bashing more the running game and the fact that the offensive line is not helping with him. But if you saw my power and sour rankings this week, and if you saw Fact or Fiction, I actually gave him a lot of credit. In the power rankings, I actually put the receiver James Conner in the top 5, and I put the running back James Conner and the offensive line. So the running game featuring James Conner and the offensive line, I put him in there. If you look at Fact or Fiction this week as well, the question was James Conner. The fact was James Conner is having a bad season, and my answer was fiction. And the reason is because if you're going to, especially in fantasy, if you're going to play him in fantasy, you have 5 touchdowns from him. You're going to get, maybe you only get 40 yards, but you're getting 120 total yards because of the receiving. So you have a lot of opportunities with him to play him in fantasy, but a lot of the times he's the guy stat-wise that you're looking at. If you're looking at someone for just rushing yards, you're not looking at him. But if you're looking at the whole package as far as player goes, I think he's having a good season.
Okay. He's the number 2 receiver yards-wise on the team right now. But you also got to remember 3 of those were pretty big plays that went as receiving yards rather than rushing yards with the touch passes from Jalen Samuels.
That's true.
And the Wildcat stuff against Cincinnati. But, yeah, in the 6 games so far, he's had more receiving yards than rushing yards in 3 of them.
So will he want paid like a top running back and a number 2 receiver? I'm just curious.
Well, yeah, he'll want it, and then he'll have to take less somewhere else for a team that can't win.
I'm asking for a friend.
And you know what's funny about that? That's a great stat, Dave. And the reason that is because that skews those were runs. They're called a pass, but those are runs. And so he lost a lot of rushing yards in his stat sheet, and that's what they're looking at. So he can't. I mean, he really can't boast on those yards, and they were actually taken away from him in the stat column. But James Conner's the kind of guy that it doesn't matter, because what he's looking at is the success of the team, and he's an unselfish player. So that's another thing I love about this guy.
I have a quick question I want to ask you guys. It kind of goes along, which would help with a fantasy thing when it comes to Mason Rudolph. If the Steelers, so many times when they get a big lead, they just sit back, they want to run the ball, run out the clock, and just win the game. Do you think this would possibly be a situation where they're saying, hey, even though we have a lead, let's see if we can, let's give him a play every once in a while, throwing it down the field and on, when you don't expect it, just to see what he can do? Or do you think they're just going to keep to the same old formula?
Tomlin's not that type of coach. You've seen it before where he'll kneel out a lot of time off the clock when they could still run the ball. I mean, you see Bill Belichick do some pretty, we'll just call it jerk moves.
Harbaugh.
The coach. Harbaugh is the same. I don't think Tomlin's that style of coach. He'll say, if they're up big, we're just going to run it. We're just going to run it. That's pretty much what I think. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, he's definitely going to do that because that's his MO. I would actually like to see him do less of that. Be a jerk, because don't let anything haunt you. What if something happens? Really go for my biggest complaint about Mike Tomlin, and I'm a Mike Tomlin apologist. I'm a fan, but my biggest complaint is when there is a lead, doesn't go for the throat. Sometimes you want to go for the throat more.
Okay, so I'm going to take the executive role here, and I'm going to say that against the Dolphins, we're not going to go over who we're going to bench. We'll just fast forward through that. I feel like we would really be struggling. And in the meantime, what I want to do is ask Brian, and that boy Devin, he asked a question, is TJ Watt playing? So before we get to our predictions, Dave, why don't you talk to us about the injury report? Today was the first injury report released.
Today was the first injury report. Now, something you have to keep in mind is that the Steelers were not in pads today because of the number of practices they've already had this week. This was their 3rd practice of the week, but the first with an injury report. So when you're not wearing pads, there might have been players that could have maybe been limited that could be considered full. But out of I think there was 11 players listed on the injury report.
Jeez.
They were, but it was 9 of them were listed as full participants. So in other words, saying they're coming off an injury. I mean, Mason Rudolph was listed on the injury report. He's been out of the protocol for over a week. So there's really no reason for him to be on there. But the only 2 players that had anything injury-wise was Juju missed practice today with an illness. They say he's, got the sniffles or something, got a bit of a bad cold. So he was out today, and TJ Watt was limited. So what limited means when you're not wearing pads is I'm not exactly sure, but he was at least working out in some regard.
They said he ran on the side of the field. That was the extent of his work.
That was yesterday. I know was the extent of his work was running on the side of the field. Today, I saw a couple pictures of him out there, but I don't know exactly what they had him doing.
All right. And yeah, I was going to say, what about the Dolphins? But then I was like,
they have 14 people listed on theirs, but most of them were full. A lot of limited, and a couple didn't practice. That's it.
Okay. All right. Let's get to our predictions. This is a tough one. What's the over-under, Dave? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yes, I brought it up. I think it's 43.5. Let me double check. Yes, it is 43.5, and the spread is gone. It was at 14.5. It's now at 14.
Oh, they got rid of the hook. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So it's rare, as Dave has told us, that the Steelers are 2 touchdown favorites And Dave, I would really wish you would have told us the stat of how many times they covered the spread.
Oh, I have it if you want that.
Yeah,
How many
let's
times
hear.
they have covered the spread under
Just
Tomlin?
under Mike Tomlin.
Just
They're
under Mike
8-1.
Tomlin. They are 8-1. They covered the spread 3 times.
Ew, not a good percentage.
So they are 3 times covering and 6 times not covering.
Okay, Brian, what's your prediction?
I think they cover, but not by much. I think it's 27 to 10.
27-10, and they cover. What about you, Dave?
Brian was really, really close to mine. I think they are not going to cover. I think it's going to be 27-17 because they're not going to care about giving up a touchdown in the fourth quarter. The reason I don't think they're going to cover is because when I said it this week in our BTSC bookie article, is that when teams have a huge spread, it's so hard to bet that because teams aren't trying to win, to cover the spread. That is not their goal. And when the spread is that large, the Steelers don't care if they win by 17 or 10, but with the betting, it does. So I'm going to say 27-17. If they cover, it's going to be because they score more points, but I don't know that they're going to start fast. My prediction is, let's see, with 27-17, that puts me at the over by a half a point, which I'm not a big fan of doing that. But my other prediction of the weird is Rudolph will throw 3 touchdowns, 1 to a running back, 1 to a tight end, and 1 to a receiver.
I said this last night, 30-13. I think the Steelers win, and I also am going to be notching another defensive touchdown in this game. I think the defense will get another turnover. I'm thinking a pick 6 in this game. Not sure who yet. Thinking maybe Steven Nelson. Would love to see Joe Hayden get one because he hasn't had one since he's been with the Steelers. He's had interceptions, but he hasn't taken one back to the house. So for me, I say 30-13. They obviously cover. So take that to the bank if that's something that you like to do. And if you trust us, because the Steelers, I don't know if I trust them considering their record against the spread when they are 2 touchdown favorites. So, all right, gentlemen, let's answer some questions here before we call it quits. That sound good?
I guess so.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's the best part of the show. Let's do it.
Exactly. All right.
Although,
so
let's
Nathan,
see. I've been trying to hypnotize Dallas with my glasses since he said that. And sorry.
Nathan says, did Lance pick the Dolphins yet? No, believe it or not, Lance did not pick the Dolphins this week. He actually picked the Steelers. I was shocked. That's kind of the kiss of death, so to speak, but nonetheless, here we are. Joseph says, what is the deal with Samuels? He's referring to Jalen Samuels. I see he was a full participant in practice. I thought he was supposed to be out a couple more weeks. Dave, you kind of touched on that, the fact that they were not in pads today, so he could have technically done everything, making him
I expected him to be limited until the report came out. So it was a surprise, but I still don't think they're going to look to have him go this week, but we'll see.
Okay, here's a question from Thomas White for Dave. Can Moncrief be cut considering the salary cap hit?
Oh, yeah, that's cutting him it's not that much of a cap hit. I mean, they basically had him on a 1 year. I mean, it was a 2-year deal, but it was an easy cut after one. And as far as we are into the season this year, it's not. They would still save. It wouldn't be where it's worse to get rid of him. So, and he's, like I said, he's the highest paid wide receiver, and he's not getting the ball.
That's right. So here we go. Dallas says, how much has Ben been to Mason? Then he says, help. My phone does not spell good. In other words, how much help has Ben Roethlisberger been to Mason Rudolph, in your opinion? Brian, let's have you answer this one.
Well, if we go back to that infamous Ben Roethlisberger show from April or May of 2018, it's as much as Mason Rudolph has gone to him, basically. Ben is, I think Ben's helping him out. I definitely think he is. But I think Ben wants to have his car waxed there and have Mason come to him and ask for help. Once he does that, Ben will open the doors, because I think that's just that's a little bit of ego there. And so, with that being said, yeah, I think he's helping him, but you got to ask for help.
What about you, Dave? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I guess Ben didn't want to help Duck very much since they wouldn't let him go to Los Angeles. But I wonder if Mason was starting, if they would have taken Ben along. I don't know. But that's a whole different. That's not something serious. I don't know how much he's really helping. I don't think he's hurting. I mean,
I don't think he's helping much at all. The way they talk, I mean, the media makes a point to say, "Wow, Ben's at practice today." If they're making a point to say Ben's at practice today, that means that he's not showing up to practice every day. In which case, how much can you help if you're not even there? So I don't think that other than maybe at home games on the sideline, he's helping him with, "Hey, here's what I saw." And honestly, if I'm Mason Rudolph, I don't really want him around that much. I want to be able to do my own thing. I don't want someone looking over my shoulder other than a coach. I want to be able to go out there and make my reads, talk to Randy Fiedner, tell them what I think is going to work best, and not have Roethlisberger constantly there, wondering what's going to happen and what he would do and all that stuff. I don't want any part of that. But that's just me. Anyone to say? You guys have anything to say to that? Or you guys good?
Yeah, I thought Ben was the offensive coordinator, but I mean, I guess there is this guy named Randy.
That guy named Randy. Okay, Snowman says, well, the Steelers had an outside linebacker to the roster. They did. Javon Elliott was signed in place of Anthony Chickalo, who was put on the NFL Commissioner's exempt list. Here's a good question from Thomas White. Would you play Watt at 90% this week or sit him? Brian, what would you do?
If Watt says he can go, then he knows his body, and I trust him. Yeah, I would play him at 90%. But Watt is intelligent enough to know that if he's not ready to go, he'd be like, I can't go. So yeah, I would probably put that up to the player in that situation and let him decide, because this is his career he's playing with. So let him decide if he thinks he's ready. It's not a situation where you have a concussion. Well, like Mason says, I'm ready to go, but no, it's a concussion. So with that being said, I'm thinking that if Watt says he's okay, well, let him play.
Dave?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, if he's good to play him. I don't even know if 90% is the number I'd go with. That's right there. That's right there on the over under. That's tricky. But if he's good to play, let him play. But you could also, depending on how the game plays out, keep him on a short leash where all of a sudden you get more of the rotation going and you're seeing less of him out there than you would otherwise, especially if there's any kind of discomfort at all. But I'd like to see him get out there and, pad some stats is what I want to see.
I'm sure he's thinking that as well. That he wants to go out there and seize an opportunity, maybe get a few more sacks to his name. All right. So that boy Devin says, do you think the Steelers trade for a receiver, or we'll just make it general? Will the Steelers make a trade before the trade deadline? Dave, what are your thoughts?
I'm saying no. I know some people think they could. If they do trade, it would be more to trade away, like an Artie Burns. I don't know that they necessarily need to do that right now. And I don't think they really have the capital to really go after somebody that's going to be enough of an upgrade to make it worth it.
What about you, Brian?
I don't see it happening. A part of me would love to say, hey, Devontae Parker, why don't you just stick around here? Don't get back on that bus, get back on that plane. Why don't you stick around in Pittsburgh? I'd love to see a guy like that stay. It's not going to happen, though. It's just, I mean, they've traded a lot away. That third round pick is still in doubt. Unless they know that they're definitely going to do that with Moncrief. And if they would go ahead and trade away another draft pick, then they were definitely going to get rid of Moncrief at that point. They would definitely have to. I just can't really see it happening. Even though they've changed their MO a little bit as far as making moves in season, I think they know what they have and are willing to roll the dice with a Deontay Johnson, with a Juju Smith-Schuster, and with James Washington. But health is paramount there as well.
I agree. Here we go. Ali says, since Jeff has stopped looking for Washington to have a breakout week, should we all stop? I guess let's ask a more general question here, and that is, are we ever going to see James Washington kind of show out? Dave, what are your thoughts?
I think so. I don't know that this would be the week because of, although he practiced fully and everything he has coming off of injury, but if he is healthy, this could be a week where we could see it.
What about you, Brian?
I really think that what we thought has actually stunted his growth with Mason being in there, because Mason is not the same player that he was when he thrived with James Washington back at Oklahoma State when they were Steel Cowboys together. And but what I'm saying here is the fact that, if Ben Roethlisberger was in there and healthy, I think James Washington has a much better season, because we're dealing with a completely different situation. You have a quarterback trying to, figure it out, and he has only started 3 games so far in his NFL career, and he's trying to get it going. He's progressing every week. I think he's going to end up getting better, but the problem is he's not finding Juju Smith-Schuster either downfield. Right now, he's playing a short game, and we saw that short game being played by Ben Roethlisberger back in 2004. So as he finds his feet, James Washington will get better, but it's not a James Washington problem. It's a situational problem.
Let's hope he does. The Steelers are good at drafting receivers. I'd hate to see a dud like that in the second round. That reminds me of I don't know, Limas Swede. But he's not that bad.
Oh,
he's
that's
not
the
that
first person
bad.
I thought of. I'm like,
Second
don't go
Limas. I'm not honestly. I'm not at Brian. I'm just exhausted. So, anyways, guys, final thoughts for the before we call it a show. Dave, anything to say?
We did have a super chat question in there.
What was it? Did you get it?
That was Kathy. Said something about Lance is eventually going to get one right. So him picking the Steelers. I can't find it right now, but I know it was $2 in the tip jar, and I at least wanted to acknowledge it, even if it didn't come on the screen.
We
to
appreciate
say
it.
thank you very, very much for that, Kathy. I'm going to be at the game. I think Russ says he's going to be there. Might come look for me. What's that?
You doing a meetup with anybody?
I said on my show, and I'll say it here, that if anyone's going to be at the game Monday night, come look for me in section 122. If you're going to, I don't want to abandon my father. That's why, and I got to make sure I'm doing a good job taking care of him, getting him there and in and everything, so it's not too much. This is kind of like a last hurrah game for him, and I'm closer to section 121. If you're going down an aisle, go between 121 and 122, about halfway down, look for the Kylo Ren helmet, which is fantastic no matter what Jeff says. And just if you're there, come say hey.
No, Jeff, Dave has his Sharpies ready. He has these 8x10 glossies he's ready to sign. And here's the thing, though. Nothing comes for free. You have to, if you're going to go to section 122, on the 121 side, you have to take a Primanti Brothers sandwich to Dave Schofield. And so let's see how many Primanti Brothers sandwiches we can get to Dave. And let's say we need at least 5 sandwiches for Dave. So that's what I'm going with.
All right, 5 sandwiches. We'll see if we can get that done. Brian, do you have anything to say to everyone before you call it a show?
No, you know what? I mean, I'm feeling good. I've got that special feeling again, and I'm really thinking that this could be the start of something nice. And I do want to address something at the beginning of the show. A few comments. No, I have not been doing lines of Coke. I'm just in a good mood. I don't really drink coffee. I'm just in a great mood. And yes, I have heard a lot in the past. I do look like Steve Sharippa from The Sopranos. So thank you. I've heard that. And I've also heard Luis Guzman as well. So I read those comments and I love them.
And Jeff, I do have one more thing.
What's that?
Because at the end of the Stat Geek show, when everyone was saying, "Hey, we'll see y'all later," and I wasn't reading through the comments, there was one that came up after I ended the show that I really wanted to say. I didn't see him on here tonight, but it was Double HH, who sometimes is in here on the live chat. He said all of BTSC guys need to have a live chat from a Heinz Field tailgater. And I'm only mentioning that because that is something where not all the guys, but I'm trying to see if there might be a game that we might see if we can do something later on in the season.
We could get Tony D there.
Well, Brian, you're the one who's got to let me know if we're good to go or not.
Yeah, Dave, you know me. I'll do it.
Yeah. Wait, so you're ready to go to Pittsburgh?
Oh yeah, I
game?
love going there. We need to get back to that. We kind of forgot about that. Plus, I've spent so much time in the woods. So now that that's going to be over, I'm ready to go to a game. I'm ready to sport one of these jerseys. In fact, I might take about 30 with them, and I'll just.
You get a jersey. You get a jersey.
Have me like Oprah. Everybody gets a jersey.
Yeah.
Well, I will not be going to a game anytime soon, as my duties of editor of the site obviously pay me money to do my job. So that Trump's going to a game nonetheless. I do want to make sure that everyone that's in the live chat or is watching this on YouTube knows that the best way that you can help us out is it's not through Super Chat. We love the fact that you are willing to give some of your hard-earned money to us, and that's awesome. The best way you can help us is by liking this post and subscribing to our channel. Lance and I said last night that we are shooting for 5,000 subscribers by the end of the season. And we are at, last I checked, 4,150. Very doable with 10 weeks left, especially if this team starts to get hot. And so for me, I think that we could absolutely get 5,000. So, all right, here we go. What's going on? What are you laughing at there, Dave?
I'm laughing because I didn't realize I was unmuted. It was Dennis said that he noticed that I hid my Tebow book. It was up there. It was actually, I took it out to see who gave it to me, and then I'm like, well, if I'm going to put it up, I'm just going to turn it around. I don't need to be looking at Tim Tebow back there. But one thing, Bo did throw up there, said you should let us know if us fans can meet up. If it happens, it would be the last game of the season. It would be the home game, the Buffalo game. So if you're thinking about trying to see if you can find any good tickets to a game and you're not sure what to do, start looking at that one. That one's December 15th.
Yeah. So if you guys want to do that, if you and Brian are going to go up there, we will, if you can let us know for sure ahead of time, we can definitely start pumping that up, and I'm sure there'd be at least a handful of people that would show up, and it would be fun. I think it'd be really fun.
Yeah.
I know other sites
That would be an amazing party. I tell you what, I'm in. I'll get the kitchen pass and I'll get ready to go.
All right. So we will tell you we are 90% a go on December 15th to get for the Buffalo Bills. So
there's one thing that I need though to do it, and it's not the Permani sandwiches. I need another pass from my editor.
Oh, okay. Gosh, you got to find someone to cover your work then. I'm not writing 20 articles in 12 hours.
Do you realize last year I went to the Kansas City Chiefs game? I took my nephew to his first game. He was 12, and I took my iPad and I wrote knee-jerk reactions from the stands. Everybody was looking at me like I was this big idiot, right in the article the entire time. Like, what's he doing? So we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. So, all right, guys.
That's a contest. That's a contest. Whoever wins the contest could write my article for me. That way.
No,
I knew that was coming.
No. Oh, this might be the funniest.
Lighten up on Brian. He works hard.
This is the funniest comment I've seen all day. Jeff, lighten up on Brian. He works hard. You don't know Brian.
Oh, you don't know what I do to this man. You know that yes, he has 5 children, but I'm responsible for some of those missing hairs.
Yes, that is true. You are for sure. So, all right, guys. So Dallas says his wife tells me he has to go. We have to go too. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Steelers Preview. Have a good one, everybody.